show. We're on the Team 980. We're on the free Odyssey app. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on TuneIn Radio. We're on YouTube. And it's not just me. Hey, look, everybody, it's Anthony Haney. Happy Thursday. Although, Anthony, man, I know I'm not trying to rub this in. I'm just trying to establish my mindset. I keep having to remind myself it's Thursday because I will not be here tomorrow. And in fact, this is the last time you will hear me until next Friday. 2 separate trips, actually. Get back on Sunday, get on a different plane, go the other direction on Monday. So heck of a travel time for your boy. But I typically coach on Friday mornings on the fitness side, and often the last month and a half, Rachel and I have gotten to a nice rhythm of going to going on a coffee date before I coach in the morning. And so this morning, because I'm not coaching tomorrow, and we had another coach who normally coaches on Thursdays who is out, I took the Thursdays. Someone else is going to take my Fridays. And so we decided, since this is kind of our Friday, and I was going to coach, let's go on our coffee date this morning. And so I'm in full mental, it's Friday. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can already see I'm in my home studio today. So that's normally a Friday thing. And yesterday, which was Wednesday, set up a Take Command podcast scheduling with the guest, Dan Pizzuta, who folks who listen to this show during football season remember is excellent. And in fact, you'll hear some of that conversation. It's not even out yet. Special sneak preview with Pizzuta here in just a few minutes. But I booked our podcast taping with me, Logan, and Dan for 9:30. As I'm walking to coffee with Rachel this morning, I realize, Anthony, I'm coaching at 9:30. I can't make that. Logan's schedule, check. He's typically the hardest one to nail down schedule-wise. Logan has 78 jobs. I only have 65. Dan's schedule, check. My schedule, no, you dum-dum. You don't have all of Thursday morning available like you usually do because you are coaching. You'll be talking into a different microphone for a different purpose. So I had to reschedule that. But I the Friday vibes, they're strong for me. Are they strong for you too? Or are you no, this is Thursday and I have no idea what you're talking about other than the fact that we're speaking on a screen versus looking through some soundproof, allegedly, glass at each other?
Yeah, I have work tomorrow, correct? So,
yeah.
So it won't be Friday until I know that the next day I don't have work. So, yeah, I'm a little jealous of you, and I wish, I
had no jealousy when you were gallivanting around Europe last week, Antoine/Antonio. So
that's fair.
This is part of life.
Yes.
Especially during the summer. People do stuff. So that's mentally where I'm at. I have not known what day it is the entire day. But it's Thursday, which does mean, by the way, an hour from now, never read the comments. We got a bunch on Commanders uniforms, on Terry, some thoughts on our NBA chat with Ben Golliver that we had. Was that this week, last week? I don't remember. That was this week, right?
No, we didn't have Ben Golliver on this week.
Oh, we had him last week?
Yep.
Maybe that was Friday. I think that was last Friday. So that was your last day that you weren't with us. It was good, Anthony. You should go back and listen to it. I think you'll enjoy it. But we had some good comments, some good thoughts on that. So that is coming up a little bit later on in the show. Where we're going to start today, though, is an article that we caught earlier in the week. And it is Bill Barnwell. So we're dead in ranking season, of course. I think everybody knows that, where every analyst is putting out their previews and rankings and this and that. And Bill Barnwell, ESPN, did his annual position group rankings for skill position guys. And so that was poorly described. His skill position group rankings for teams. So what he did was he ranked 1 through 32, took the playmaker groups for each team, and ranked them. So these are his big, bold headlines of what matters in these rankings. And then coming up next, we'll get into it, including where the Commanders fall. This is only about 2025 on-field performance, so he leaves out things like contract value and long-term projections. Injury histories and suspensions matter. And he says, I can't see the future, but it would be foolish to not consider a player's recent track record of health in projecting what they might do. T. Higgins is a star on a snap-by-snap basis, but has also missed 10 games over the past 2 seasons. Christian McCaffrey has been an MVP hopeful when healthy, but has missed huge chunks of 3 of the past 5 seasons. On down the list, et cetera, et cetera. He also mentions a guy like Jordan Addison, who's got an upcoming court case, and so there might be a suspension there. For whatever it's worth, he said, I'm not expecting potential hold-ins such as Terry McLaurin to miss meaningful time. So whatever that's worth. Wide receivers are weighted more heavily than running backs or tight ends. In the current NFL, the high point for a running back or a tight end in terms of average salary is Saquon Barkley's new deal, which pays him $20 million. Obviously, Jamar Chase is making double that. And in fact, 21 different wide receivers have average salaries north of that mark. So the league is valuing receivers more, thus he does. The focus is on elite players and the team's top 5 contributors, and those are the main rankings. So, Anthony, I have intentionally all week, even though I love this concept, and I know we're going to talk about it, I haven't looked at the rankings yet. Have you looked at these rankings? Do you know where Washington is?
I literally looked at the rankings 3 minutes before the show started.
Oh, okay. Look at you being prepared. Which show do you think this is? I'm going to throw a dart. I'm going to say Washington comes in at 13. That is a total guess. We'll see if I'm right, and we'll look at his list next on The Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. All right, Bill Barnwell and company at ESPN ranked the top position groups, skill position guys in the NFL, 1 through 32. My guess is that the Commanders are at 13. I have not looked yet, so we'll see. We'll quickly run through the bottom. Let's go to 20, Anthony. I'm just going to scroll to say everybody. If there's anything that we find interesting, let's get there.
What if the Commanders are there?
Then I guess we'll spend more time there.
Okay,
it's a great point. I don't think they'll be here, but we'll see. 32 is Tennessee. 31 Carolina. Man, that is rough. Tennessee is that bad. I didn't realize that. Jeez. New England 30. They're terrible. Cleveland, yikes. 28 Buffalo. Ouch. That feels low. And
I think it's spot on.
I guess the Jets have Garrett Wilson. Okay, Jets, Giants, maybe. Bears. And really, if we're thinking about it in terms of talent, that's a game changer because scheme, is obviously a huge deal. The Saints, as he starts off, it's tough to figure out what to do with Chris Olave. Yeah. It feels like a guy that should maybe never play football again based on how many concussions that he's had. 23 is Denver. Who's Denver got? Is Denver really that much better than Buffalo?
No.
That feels...
They got Cortland Sutton, though.
Marvin Mims is nice as a gadget player. J.K. Dobbins, I don't know that.
I mean, outside of Josh Allen and James Cook, who do the Bills have? I mean, they got two good tight ends, Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, it depends on how healthy the tight ends are. I mean, James Cook, though, is really, really good. Like, I know he's not running backs is only waiting so much, but dang, James Cook's a good back. And they run him a lot. That is the thing about running backs, right? Is yes, they are less valuable for a lot of reasons, which is a whole separate discussion, but they do touch the ball a lot depending on the offense. And he's like a 20 touch a game type of guy. So
yeah,
it seems like he should push the value up. Chargers with Ladd McConkey and company at 22. The Steelers at 21. I guess. I mean, DK's nice, but that seems high. The Raiders at 20. Obviously, Brock Bowers is the feature piece there. I don't even know. Can I name a Raiders wide receiver? Who do they even have?
I don't know.
I mean, Brock Bowers is their number one guy. He should count more than the average tight end because he gets the ball a ton. They obviously also drafted Ashton Genty, and they have Raheem Mostert as well. So, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, not great. All right, so definitely we can squabble with some orders there. Seattle, he's got at 19, which is wild because they were 8-4 in 2024 and 2023 respectively. The DK Tyler Lockett departure, they bring in Cooper Kupp, so we'll see how that works out with JSN. Jacksonville at 18, that's one that could. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's one that could look bad if Brian Thomas Jr. turns out to be what he was last year and Travis Hunter has a massive rookie year, but they're both super young. The Packers, they win the weirdest skill position group in the league. How many number 2 receivers can you have? The limit does not exist.
Nope.
All right. The Colts at 16. How do you, Mr. Colt, feel about the Colts at 16?
I mean, I think Jonathan Taylor sort of kind of gets disrespected. But I think outside of Michael Pittman, I think their receiving core have a lot to prove. And then the rookie, he also has a lot to prove too. So we'll see what Tyler Warren does. But I think this is okay, middle of the pack.
Yeah, it feels like there's actually not a ton of separate. That's why someone like Jacksonville being where they are kind of surprises me, where I'm like, they just feel like their ceiling could be so much higher. I did like this part of the write-up from Barnwell. He goes, no other group of receivers suffers more because of its situation. The Colts dropped back for just 567 passes last season, the 4th lowest of any team, and nearly 21% of those passes were off target. So maybe the receiving group is better than we think. It's just the quarterback play was so poor that you don't really realize it. 15, the Arizona Cardinals. Have you seen the photos of Marvin Harrison Jr.? I know, like,
That dude is jacked.
I know that, like, we're not supposed to read too much into off-season photos, but, like, the side-by-sides of him last year compared to this year, holy cow.
I thought he was huge coming into the NFL. I
want to know how he moves because, like, he looks like a Megatron robot type of dude. And it's like, okay, well, if you move like Megatron Calvin Johnson, that's fine. If you're going to be super stiff, that's not ideal. But we'll see. He's clearly put some time into the gym. 14, Houston Texans. Obviously, I think they could be way higher if the injuries were good, and we'll see how the rookies are. They drafted both Jalen and Jaden from Iowa State. Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel. They got Christian Kirk, which to me is like a great signing or a great acquisition for them. And obviously the star there is Nico Collins, and we'll see what happens with Tank Dell. Anthony, I hit it on the dot. The Commanders are 13.
Yeah, when you said 13, I was like, did you get a sneak peek of this article? But nah, 13 was a great guess. Like, fantastic.
And I think we're now in the area where, like, with Houston, with Washington, with whatever teams that I haven't said yet that are coming next, a lot of these teams in this area have the higher potential ceiling, depending on how some things go. One thing Pizzuta said, because he wrote the FTN football, like the guys who run FTN are the guys who used to run Football Outsiders. So if you've ever heard of the Football Outsiders Almanac, it's now the FTN Almanac, and Dan helped write it this year, and he actually wrote the Commanders chapter. And he said as he was reviewing all the stuff, one, he actually went back and listened to some of the times that he was on the show, because he was like, I wanted to remember what it was like to be in the moments for some of these games and some of these discussions. So, Anthony, if we have any weird podcast traffic, it's just Dan listening back to himself and our show from earlier this year, which is kind of funny. But larger picture on this season, he said when he was doing the homework on Debo, he's like, he actually was having a really good season until he got pneumonia. And he got pneumonia in the middle of the season. And while he was out, Brandon Ayuk got hurt. And he comes back, and obviously, like, pneumonia has long consequences. So he was sick, basically, like his lungs weren't working properly for the rest of the year, and his body probably wasn't up to like normal amounts of energy. And the whole offense had changed. So he's pretty high on what Debo could be this year, which I thought was interesting. As for where Barnwell is, he had them 26th last year, 21st in 2023. He says the arrival of Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury leveled everyone up in Washington. Terry McLaurin, finally given a quarterback worthy of his talents, soared on a per-route basis. He finished 16th in yards per route run and nearly doubled his prior career high in touchdowns, racking up 13 before adding 3 more in the playoffs. He didn't set a career high in receiving yards by virtue of not getting the same target totals he saw at times in previous seasons, but he was at his most efficient best with improved quarterback play. He talks about how Olamide Zaccheaus and De'Ami Brown exceeded expectations. Noah Brown should return in a lesser role. The big addition is Debo, who averaged 110 scrimmage yards per game during his All-Pro season in 2021 and 64 scrimmage yards per contest across his other 5 seasons. He's a true outlier in terms of generating yards after catch year after year, and he should fit well as a part of all the screens the Commanders run, but he also has had consistent issues with fumbles, drops, and injuries. Projecting a Samuel turnaround like the ones we saw for the reclamation projects of Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler last season is more difficult considering he's leaving an offense built by Kyle Shanahan. Fair. Ertz and Eckler back, and Brian Robinson Jr. has developed into a reasonable between the tackles rudder, but I want to see whether this team's high 2024 draft picks develop. So that's Sinnott and Luke McCaffrey. And that's basically the main thing. Is like, how good are Sinnott and McCaffrey going to be? Do you get another year of Ertz and Eckler type of production and Debo? So, like, to me, that's asking all the right questions, and it really comes down to when you put them versus some of the other questions this team in this area has, how likely you are to get yeses to one of them, 2 of them, all of them. If they're all, then you have a top 10 group. Like, if Debo's not, again, he's never doing 2021 again. That's a 2-of-a-kind season in NFL history based off some metrics that I don't remember off the top of my head, but I looked up a couple weeks ago. Terry, you're probably getting similar, I would hope, as long as he gets the same type of targets. Other guys I think can step up. But if you get good Debo, you get good Ertz, you get all this. Like, this is a top 10 group. It's just, it feels like the chances that all goes right is slim to none. Now, the good news is I think they'll be good enough anyway. Like, the quarterback is good enough to elevate whatever they've got skill position wise, that they'll still be a playoff team. But I think this is totally fair in terms of the rankings. Like, I don't know if we'll encounter a team in the final 12 that I'm like, that team is so definitively worse than the Commanders that this is a travesty.
Yeah, I like the little tier that the Commanders are in. And as you were talking about, with some of the other teams, the Jags and the Raiders per se, or the Seahawks, a lot of those, it's tough to like really put them in the correct order when they're all in like the same bucket. So I think this bucket that we're in right now is perfect. And I think it's all ultimately going to come down to, Cliff being able to, utilize our guys' best assets. And I think he did a phenomenal job with that, in terms of getting Eckler the ball in space as opposed to like running him, between the tackles and things of that nature. Granted, he did do it, but his best bet was, getting him the ball in space. So I think with Debo, I think with Terry, I think Cliff is, going to be himself and, cook up some stuff.
For sure. All right. So then you've got Kansas City at 12, and to them, like, it really comes down to how good Rashee Rice is. They've got Xavier Worthy still, but like if Rice is back and not suspended for most of the season, like this group is probably fine. If not, like I still think they have a lot to be desired. But they have a ton of injury stuff. I don't know, that's a weird group. I could definitely see like Washington finishing way ahead of Kansas City, but
I don't know about way ahead. I mean, because you still got Travis Kelce.
It's more I see the downside of Kansas City. Like if Rice has an 8-game suspension, Worthy is a more of a gadget player in his best use than he is like a true receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Kelce's not Travis Kelce what he used to be, but is still good.
Yeah.
Like, is he what Ertz is last year? If so, like that's a heck of a season, but like it's not Travis Kelce that can carry an offense.
Yeah.
Then like how much better is that group really?
Yeah.
So
I mean, so I would agree. Then Rice is probably the X factor that unlocks.
Yeah, and I would think, I'd be honest, like I think Terry's better. Like actually, I would probably put, if I'm being honest, I'd probably put Washington over Kansas City. Again, I don't feel like violently about it, but like, is Terry or Rashee Rice a better player? I think Terry's a better player.
I mean, yeah, Terry's definitely a better player, but I just look at their speed though. Also, man,
their speed's crazy. It's great.
You got Worthy, like, you got Hollywood Brown, like
who
that's
never
scary.
plays, and that's the other thing too. Is like, okay,
Health.
The Debo versus Hollywood, who plays more games? That's not a bet I want to take on either side.
Yeah.
Based on the last couple of years, Dallas is 11. The upside there is obvious. The downside is also obvious. Dolphins, again, same thing. Falcons, they're good. They're deep. Drake London's fantastic. Baltimore, Zay, Henry, Andrews, the other Bateman. Like, by the way, likely. Bateman was awesome last year, by the way, low key.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa is at 7, which almost feels low, but like Godwin coming off the injury and is older. Evans older, but they still have a ton of depth. Minnesota, they've got JJ. Rams, they've got Puka and Devontae. That makes sense. San Francisco, again, it just comes down to the health. Like I could see San Francisco dropping in this based off of health, but based off what they're capable of doing. I mean, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle. They still have Juszczyk, who's like a weapon for them. Jawan Jennings has turned into like an excellent receiver. So got that. Bengals, duh. Lions, kind of duh. And then the Eagles have the number 1 with AJ. And yeah, I think that's about right. Again, I can quibble with none, but outside of like Buffalo being way lower than I think that they should be based off the teams around them and how much I like James Cook, I don't have any major gripes with that list, and I think Washington's right around where they should be.
Yeah,
which is much less fun than when we get to yell at the national media for being ridiculous.
No, for real.
All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we have for you a conversation with me, Logan Paulson, and Dan Pizzuta answering a mailbag question that we got. Speaking of answering your questions and responding to you, we have Never Read the Comments 1 hour from now. Also, 5 o'clock, massive scandal in the NFLPA. Kaylin Kaler from ESPN's reporting on it. She'll join us then. We're locked. We're loaded. We have a little Nats in the 6 o'clock hour. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. On the Odyssey app, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. And if you miss any part of the show, you can catch it on the podcast feed. Just search The Hoffman Show wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. All right, right now, discussion we had earlier today, me, Logan, and Dan Pizzuta, who was on the show a ton last year, NFL analyst. And it's in response to a mailbag question that we got that we thought Dan would be the perfect guest to help us answer. So without further ado, I'd set up all the question and stuff in the segment, so I'm not going to talk, double back. It's a thing that I hate when hosts do, including myself. So I'm going to stop talking now. Anthony, let's hit the button. We got a bunch of great mailbag questions, Dan. And we had one on like AI and analytics and statistics and the advancement in those areas in football. And Logan and I kind of went, we could probably do a decent answer to this, but I want to get, we both wanted to get someone who knows more about that stuff than us. And as we started to think about who the really smart data people are that we know in the sports media, you were the first person that came to mind. So just as background, how did you get into the data analytics side and viewing football through that lens. And then obviously you do a ton of film work and stuff too. So it's not like you're single sided, but specifics in the data analytics side. Like, how did you get into that stuff?
Yeah. So I kind of got into it by reading a lot of Football Outsiders. So I think it was really like the origin story there is like, I'm not like a data guy. I'm not like a computer science type of guy who
Right.
like came into it in a statistics way. I honestly, the first thing that got me into it was listening to a Bill Simmons podcast back in the day. And Aaron Schatz was the guest. And I think they were talking about it was a Super Bowl or something. And just the way Aaron was describing things and how they worked and how like we should be thinking about how things worked just made sense to me. So I started really getting into that and, reading Football Outsiders all the time, getting more into statistical things because, I didn't, play football coming up. So that was my kind of introduction to figuring out how some things worked. And then, like you said, I started diving into film more, starting to marry those things. And I think in a lot of my writing is trying to answer why things are happening. And I think when you can kind of mesh two of those things together, that's kind of where I found where it is helpful. You could either look at things from the film, go to the numbers and see like, is this telling the same story? And then the same thing, you're looking at some of the numbers and then you can go back to the film. And so I think it's just a smart way to kind of figure out what is going on and why that's happening.
So like, what's your process look like? I mean, that's really interesting. Like, do you do numbers, like what your data sets look like, and then like how do you, like you said, you kind of do both film and numbers, so where does that intersection happen, and like do you look at the film first then go back to the numbers or vice versa?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Like during the seasons, usually, I'll the past couple years, I've written like a really big, like Sunday night, Monday morning column. So I'll be sitting there, taking notes and kind of checking on things that I would like to, dig a little bit deeper into. And then I had, access to some things like a True Media, which is, populating a lot of numbers that happen on Sunday night. And I'll kind of dive into that, look at the numbers to see if they check like some of the notes that I was making earlier in the day. And I'll continue to dive into that, go back to some film and kind of check on some plays a little bit. So it just depends on what I am looking at the moment, what I really want to dive into. I think there's certainly both things. A lot of times, be looking into, either, an FTN Stats Hub or a True Media, kind of looking at numbers. And then, a lot of things like a True Media and even NFL Pro now, where if you're looking at some of this data now, they have the film available. So you can be like clicking on, all third downs that you want to look at. And so I think it's just an easy way to be looking at both. So it, depending on, if I'm looking at a specific article, sometimes I'll, look at the data, see what it says, go to the film and then see like kind of why the stats are saying that. I think it is a fun way to be looking at it too.
Logan, I'm actually curious for you. Like when you play, like you watched a ton of film when you played. Was there any statistical stuff that you look at or that any players you think look at?
So on what day is that? So on Monday they give us like a big packet, and usually it has like coverage percentages. So it's like, oh,
right,
on first down it's, what is it, 40% cover 3, 20% cover 4, and then they'll bring these pressures at this kind of rate, and then obviously those percentages change on third down. So I didn't use that as like a ton, because like part of the thing, the muscle you're working is like the reaction to the coverages.
right.
So like, can I identify, but you are kind of like stacking your chips, saying like, I'm anticipating 3 because they run that 40% of the time or 50% of the time based on formation and personnel, and then I'm going to adjust to the other stuff. So that was kind of as far as the numbers went for me, because in the moment it came down to more like, when you're playing, it comes down to more identification, like in the moment, like, is this the front, is this the pressure, is this, because like the percentages, while like if you're playing cards, it's important, and it does kind of help inform your study and your adjustments and all those different things. Like, you really got to make sure that in the moment you've identified it correctly. So yes, it played a role, but I do think like the film, the tape, the walkthrough, the practice stuff was definitely more impactful than the raw data, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also think too, like some stuff we don't think, like you can put a quantitative number on things. Like if the guy's hand is on his knee versus on his hip, run versus pass, like you think of that as a film study tendency. But if that were to be presented to you as 100% of the time on a data set, like technically that's a statistical analysis too. It's just how often you're playing the percentages, you're playing the tendencies, and Dan, things like that.
Yeah, and that's, the different types of, analytics. I think like that is a very broad term that
Right.
not everyone really uses correctly, I think. And there's a lot of stuff that is just charting data, which comes from either someone charting, and as we get to it, like there is some like AI now that is just like picking up the movements and then charting it. So there's charting data, which I use a lot when I'm working, because it is telling you what is actually happening on the field. Then there's EPA and things, which someone like in Logan's, what his EPA is not necessarily going to matter to him, right? That's something fun for me to be explaining what is happening on the field. But those charting tendencies and things, not necessarily something that he's going to have in his head, as he's lining up, but it does for, the coaches and things, if that is used and I think talked about correctly, because I think a lot of things in NFL buildings, you can have a lot of this data, but if it's not being expressed and communicated in a way that is clear and making it matter, then it really is not being used. So yeah, I think there is a lot of some of that charting data and things like that it can be presented in a way where it definitely is helpful for game planning, which will then give, the players something to look at, even though they probably aren't going to have the exact numbers in their head as they're, going into the game planning.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think like obviously like for a player, like what's actionable is way different than what's actionable for like a coach. Like I think about the fourth down percentages and how those are slowly going up in the last couple of years, and again, that's actionable on win percentage, right? And that's you're talking in some cases fractions of percentage points, but when you're looking for every inch, like that's significant for a head coach to kind of be aware of in the game situation, down and distance, score, number of possessions left in the game, like what, like should I go for fourth down here? And I think like that's again, I'm not saying like as a player that's too much for me to be thinking about, but the coaches should definitely be thinking about, specifically the head coach here in Washington's case, because that's Dan's kind of area at his call, and I know he is kind of been leaning in more to those higher level analytic models a little bit more recently. So
yeah, for sure. I think, something that we've all talked about separately, and I think, well, Dan and Logan, this is their first time talking, but I know I've talked about it with both of you separately as well, is like analytics are, and any piece of data, whether you want to call it. We get a bunch of great mailbag questions, Dan, and term has a certain stigma to it amongst other people. It's just stats. Some of them are just more fancy. They have some higher level of calculation that's required versus, I don't know, completion percentage. But analytics are a tool, and the tool is only as good as the craftsman who's using it. And so, like, we talked about that a lot this week on the radio show in the baseball world, because Mike Rizzo, the now fired general manager of the Washington Nationals, I don't think was the greatest craftsman when it came to the analytics side. And some of his underlings, who people are like, how can you go potentially even consider the second in charge for a guy who's been there for a bunch of years? It's like, well, he's a much better craftsman with this particular tool. And so I think that when you look at, and the same thing we've talked about with the coaches for the Commanders, like Rivera said he looked at a lot of analytics. I don't know that Ron Rivera was a very good craftsman when it came to looking at said analytics. Dan Quinn, excellent craftsman. And so whether it is the quality of data that you are pursuing, whether it is what you actually do with that data, because I mean, all of these things like fourth downs, it's percentages. It's like we have based off our analytical model, which some teams have super geared up for their personnel. A lot of the fourth down models that we see in the media world are more general to all 32 NFL teams over the course of the last however many years, whatever their inputs are, and they often disagree. But all of those are giving you percentages. And so if you understand as a coach that, like, okay, it's 60%, we're going to go for it, or, it's 60% go, but we had an injury to our left guard 5 plays ago, and he's not available, and their defensive tackle has been crushing in the last 5 plays, like, we might be on the 40% side here. And so I have to make that call. And also the upside is X% winning percentage, or estimated winning percentage if we go, versus if we punt, there's only it's only a 1% difference. So like, what kind of risk do we want to take on versus if we don't get it, and the downside side of those equations. So it's not as simple as stay or go. Like all of these things ultimately come down to the decision making, Logan, like you were just talking about, or I think even Dan on the media side, like we were talking about, how do you present the data, how you present the information, what conclusions do you draw from it determines who is using this stuff well versus who is not.
Yeah, and I think that is a really important place of how it's talked about and framed. And I think there are some things that I think it happened in baseball early on, to when like the like analytics and things came out, and I think it happened a couple years ago in football where there were some public voices that were the way they presented it was like we solved football, which is very clearly not
Right.
the case. And I think that kind of turned some people off to the overall message, which probably would have been helpful to come into more ears. And I think we've gotten away from that, and slogans and things like running backs don't matter. I don't think that was a very helpful thing to the cause, because that was never true. In a way, there was a lot of caveat to running backs are not the most important piece of a running game. But again, that's hard to say over and over again. But I think there were framings of ways that I don't think were helpful. But I think we've now, as it's gotten more into, the overall kind of lexicon of how we talk about football, I do think it is easier to kind of express some of these ideas now. And there are, I think, better people at communicating these ideas that I think we do have kind of just more of an understanding of how we can use them and why they do matter.
So, well, I mean, that's a really interesting point. Like, so what do you think are like if you had to give me like a top three, like what are the three kind of biggest analytical pieces that have developed over the last 10 years? I mean, you mentioned the running back thing. I think that's, again, I don't know if that's a great one. Like the caveat there is it's really nuanced and complicated. But then, like, I think about the passing game. I think about the EPA numbers for the passing game stuff and how everyone's like, you should be passing all the time. Now that hasn't really bore out in the same way. Is there anything that you're like, this is the direction that you like, maybe the future of analytics and something to kind of keep an eye on for the fans?
Yeah, I think fourth down still continue to be the big one that I think we are still continuing to get the kind of maximum of what that is. It's not just going for fourth downs now. I think now that teams are more open to it and know that a fourth and short is going to be something where you can probably are going to lean go in a lot of areas of the field. That's now completely changed how third downs work, and really also first and second down, because now if you get to a third and medium, I think we saw it a lot with Detroit this year. I think we saw it with Washington too, where 3rd and 7, that might be a rundown now, because if you're gaining maybe 5 yards on a 3rd and 7, you're now setting yourself up for a 4th and manageable, which you're more likely to go for if you are in a place where that does make sense. So I think the fourth downs overall are starting to change how plays are going to be called, and how offenses are going to be able to structure themselves on third down specifically, and even first and second down to get into third and manageable too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. Are there any other, like, when you talk about the advancement of analytics, sometimes it's the advancement of the understanding of analytics. Is there something that you think very differently about now versus like 5 years ago, where you're like, oh yeah, this is how we use this piece of information, and now you're like, maybe not.
Yeah, I think especially this year specifically, I think how we've talked about the run game in the analytics community has certainly changed. And like I said, a bunch of years ago, I never fully bought into running backs that don't matter. It clearly that is not the case. But how we saw how teams can, with so much passing, and how that was more valuable, offenses started to try to get that to be more efficient and optimize to that. And defenses then were starting to optimize towards stopping the pass. Then we see a little bit more of a comeback for offenses. We can get a little heavier in personnel. Now that we're running against lighter boxes, having a run game is now more valuable for us, because the defense is not selling out to stop that. So we do have some more room to work. So it's finding that balance, and know that there is never one answer here. Like, again, we have not solved football. There's going to continue to be kind of this cyclical effect of what does and doesn't matter and how valuable that is on the field. So I think last year we saw the EPA between passing and running was closer than it had been in like decades. So I think that is, and to go off that, I think if you kind of have a quarterback that doesn't run, I think you're setting yourself in a box where there's such a small margin for error. And I think, Craig, we talked about this kind of every week with Jaden Daniels, right? Having a quarterback that can run, especially a young quarterback, it just increases your margin for error to allowing him to develop kind of on the fly. There were mistakes kind of that this offense could get away with because there was a way to bail yourself out of those mistakes, which I don't think, Jared Goff, when he was a rookie, there was not that, break glass in case of emergency piece. If the offense wasn't working like that, it was a dead play. So I think we have seen the value in scrambles too, where if you're having, playing 11 on 11 like that, we've seen the value of that happen, and it bears out in numbers. And I think it bears out on the field too.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about that, because like I don't know, maybe my old football person comes out and is like, it just seems like good football philosophy. Like you just want to put the defense in conflict as much as possible and subvert expectations as much as possible. So it just seems like if you're operating under sound, like I'm an offensive guy, like sound offensive construction, sound offensive play selection, then you're going to be able to keep the defense off rhythm, right? Like kind of like what you're talking about with the run game, right? Like if we're getting a lot of two shell, if we're getting a lot of like light boxes, we should attack that. We should attack that weakness and force them to adapt what we want. So, I mean, I'm sure there are numbers that support that, but that also seems to me just stupid former football player, like common sense. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that like we get all these numbers out there, but like, I'm more likely to get a first down on 4 downs instead of 3. Like there's all these different things that just seem intuitively obvious. And so I guess what is the actual advantage of some of this data if you are operating under sound principles?
Yeah, I think it is, it kind of one of those things. It just kind of depends on, I think, how it is being used. Like you said, I think that the best way is, I think a lot of the optimization in football is helping for things to get better, right? Because I think like in baseball, it's, the home runs or nothing really. It was kind of like how analytics started to play out. But in football, it is, being more aggressive. And I think that does lead to, more points and things. So I do think it is, like you said, there is certainly a marriage. I think the analytics people and the film people and like the old school football people, they're trying to get the same things across. I do think they have the same goals in mind. So I think they're just kind of talking in different languages. But I think the teams that are at least doing it the best are the ones that are just communicating those back and forth between those two sides together. So I don't think there is, like the 4th downs and things, the teams that have been going just against that. And like, I think those are teams like at a detriment. So I think you can optimize play calling a little bit because of it. And I think it's a lot of things, off the field too, and how you're scouting some numbers that you're looking at. So I think there are just definitely edges that you can get from this. And if you're not using it at all, I think you are just putting yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, I feel like it's a matter of taking away some of the guesswork, right? It's like we watch film and we think this, and it's like, okay, well now we have data to back it up. And something like an EPA per play can be like, hey, this is a way, like we feel like this is really good for our offense or really damaging by this offense that we're scouting. And now, like, look at the numbers. It puts it into more black and white versus vibes. And if you're really smart about football, like you're trying to accomplish these things and you probably understand these things from watching film. Like, I don't think as Sean McVay, or like, I don't think when you were playing, like, you don't need the data to be like, oh, yeah, blocking Michael Strahan was hard. Like, you didn't need that. But, like, if you can say, oh, this is how damaging this part of his game is, maybe you work a little bit harder to, emphasize that part of the scout because you have a deeper understanding of just how damaging or effective this certain thing is. So I think it's clarifying.
Want more from Craig and Logan? Subscribe now on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. More Hoffman Show next on the Team 980 and the free Odyssey app.
It's Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the Odyssey app, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio 2, YouTube at the Team 980. And there's a pretty big scandal brewing at the NFLPA offices. In fact, there's a lot of scandals. It's multi-layered, to say the least. And one of the lead reporters on it is going to join us today for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Kaylin Kaler is with us. She, along with our friend Don Van Natta, have written a series of pieces now for ESPN exposing a pretty big story within the NFL and specifically the NFLPA. Kaylin, thanks for your time. Thanks for your reporting. I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So Lloyd Howell, the executive director of the NFL Players Association, he seems like he's in a bit of hot water here. There's been a lot of stories about him over the last couple of months. There are some investigations into the NFLPA's finances. And then there's the Pablo Torre Finds Out episode where Pablo and his team dive into this settlement document that alleges that NFL owners conspired to suppress player salaries, and then he hid that full document from players. And now you have, Kaylin, this story that you and Don wrote that came out this morning about how he is also working for the Carlyle Group, a consulting firm that many in the DC area will be familiar with. And that's super weird. It'd be weird in general because like NFLPA executive director is a full-time gig, but the Carlyle Group is also now working to potentially buy part of an NFL franchise. And so there is a lot here. Where did you dive into this story? What is the thing that was the hook for you, whether it was a tip, whether it's someone calling you, whether it's the Pablo podcast? Like, when did you get involved in this story and in what capacity?
Yeah, so actually this goes back almost 3 years. I actually broke the news that the PA was suing the league for collusion, that Lee Smith had filed this grievance back in October of 2022. So I'd been paying attention to it ever since then. And then when Pablo, I kept asking, like, what happened with it? What happened with it? What happened with it? And I was hitting, I was getting stonewalled at every point. And actually I think I made calls about it in April to be like, hey, did we ever see the decision? Did anybody ever see this decision? Because Florio, I believe it was Florio, Mike Florio with Pro Football Talk, who had reported that the PA lost the grievance, and that's all we knew. But then 2 weeks ago, Pablo Torre got the full 61-page decision. And from there, I was like, okay, wow, now we have a lot to work with because we can see what was actually said, what the arbitrator actually decided in this decision. And a lot of it was really interesting from a union point of view. There were texts from owners that looked weird. The Chargers owner texted the Cardinals owner thanking him for the contract he did with Kyler Murray because the Chargers owner was going to have his own contract with Justin Herbert coming up next, and he appreciated that Michael Bidwell didn't guarantee a ton of money to Kyler Murray. There were emails from the Management Council and Roger Goodell that showed that the Management Council had presented to owners and encouraged them to reduce guaranteed money in player contracts, telling them that would be a smart choice. So all of that was really interesting to see. And so Don and I started digging into it at that point when Pablo got the decision, because we were wondering, well, why didn't the NFLPA publish this decision? Why didn't they share it with the media? Why didn't they, who did they share it with? And then we found out from sources that the PA had not even shared the decision, like copies of the decision, the full decision, with their player executive committee or with their player representatives, the 32 players that are nominated from each club. Those important members of the union did not know the details of this grievance decision. All they knew was the PA had lost. And we thought that was really interesting. So then we learned that the NFL and the NFLPA had entered into a confidentiality agreement about this decision. The parties agreed they would not publish the copies of this decision, and it would remain private. And in the CBA, if you read the CBA, in the section of system arbitration and confidentiality, it says that the player executive committee and player representatives are among the group of people, along with senior executives of the NFL and the NFLPA and the member clubs who are associated with the grievance, they are among the groups of people that are allowed inside this like confidentiality circle. But in this case, they were not. And so we wanted to find out what was going on here. And in the course of reporting about the confidentiality agreement, we learned that the NFLPA planned to appeal the grievance. We reported that yesterday, and they plan to file an appeal on this grievance. And then we learned that the NFL is going to be filing a claim to recoup legal fees from the union. And then we learned that Lloyd, as you mentioned, in addition to being the executive director, is also a part-time consultant working for the Carlyle Group. And when he took the job, it was before he was the union executive director. It was about 3 months before. And that was at a point in time when the Carlyle Group had not yet been approved by the NFL to invest in NFL clubs. That happened last August. But when I talked to Jim Quinn, who was a former outside counsel for the PA, he represented the PA for about 25 years. And honestly, he was outraged by learning this about Lloyd. He said he would have expected Lloyd to resign from the Carlyle Group position as soon as he became the executive director of the PA, because he said in his experience, he represented the PA when Gene Upshaw and B. Smith were the executive directors. He said those two never were able to get paid for outside work. That was just an ability that they had. He said it's because their job is to represent the players, and that is their first and foremost job. And right now, it seems like the optics, the perception of the union director being a part-time consultant for a private equity firm is bad enough, but then the private equity firm is able to invest in an NFL club is even worse. And Jim Quinn, I'm just going to read a quote he said because it was really interesting. He said, "It would be an outrageous conflict for the head of a labor union to have an interest in a third party that is aligned with the NFL. The relationship between a labor organization and the employer organization is adversarial by definition. And as a result, as a leader, you have to be absolutely clear and clean as to having even no opinion of conflict."
It seems pretty logical to me. And what we have here, Kaylin, is like a Russian nesting doll of NFLPA nonsense. So this feels like the doll on the very inside, or maybe the one on the very outside. But I want to go all the way back to the initial issue here, which is the lawsuit. And then we'll get to some of the other stuff with Howell, et cetera. But this initial lawsuit, which is you broke years ago at this point, is on the heels of the Deshaun Watson contract, where the Browns, very stupidly from a football analysis standpoint, nevertheless the precedent-setting nature of it, give Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. And the league ultimately finds ways to say, and this is in the reporting, this is in the reporting that Pablo did that you guys have also now seen in this 61-page document, that the league was like, hey, don't do that. No other owner, please do not give players guaranteed money. That also seems like a very logical thing to want. Like if you're an owner and the way the NFL salary cap is structured, that it's like, the void years are really important to making the cap work. It's not like players aren't making a lot of money. So when you look at that document and you think about the PA now appealing the finding that there was no collusion, even though there's a lot of evidence clearly that it wasn't clean, what do you make of that initial or the chances of appeal and what that could mean for the league? Like how threatening is that for the league?
It's hard to say because the PA did not give us any information about what the nature of the appeal is, or even specifically what it is within it that they're appealing. I mean, obviously they didn't win, but we don't know the specifics of what this appeal entails. And they gave us one, they just didn't give us anything as far as to what this appeal is. We only know from a source familiar with the situation that they are in fact appealing. And so the nature of the appeal, we don't know. And so I can't say exactly how serious this would be, but in conversations that I've had with, people who have worked in the union and who are experts in this area, there was so much in that decision that the arbitrator chose to include and is now public, and involving communications with the league and even Goodell and the owners. And that the discovery in the original grievance was limited to the three quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. And if there is an appeal, and if you were able to file more grievances off of it, you could expand it. Like, I think people wonder all the time, what about running backs? Like, running backs for a long time have felt like teams have been, I guess, working together to limit their compensation, right? Because the position had been devalued for a while. So there is a lot, just this topic of collusion, there's a lot more that if you were to file more grievances or appeal, and there's a process further of more discovery, I mean, I think there's a lot more that you could get as far as evidence of collusion between owners and between teams and between the league office. And the next step for this specific scenario is that it's going to go to a 3-person panel who's going to rule on it. But, at the time we reported this, the NFLPA had notified the NFL they were going to file the appeal, but they had not actually filed it yet. So we're very early in this process.
Gotcha.
Even though it's 6 months after the decision, like it took them a long time to make this action.
And their executive director to be under a lot of fire for not doing things that seem to be in the best interest of the players, which seems like potentially a relevant plot point. Kaylin Kaler, ESPN investigative reporter, their national NFL reporter, with us here on the Hoffman Show. And I think there's like a whole separate interesting discussion about, I think, some of the more market forces meet collusion. It's like if everybody's trying to do the same thing, as long as they don't collaborate, that's just market forces. If they collaborate to artificially suppress, that's collusion. And that's, again, we could talk about that for probably an hour. But then we'd have a lot of these Russian nesting dolls, so to speak, that we didn't touch, and we need to go and figure out more on them. So Lloyd Howell is the guy now at the center of all of this. He is the executive director. He'd be in charge of, leading the potential appeals process. He's in charge of this collusion, potentially to keep this finding away from people that should have seen it based off the CBA points that you referenced earlier. Before all this started to blow up, especially in the last month or so, Kaylin, when you talk to people around the NFL, players, especially like higher ranking players in the PA, about Lloyd Howell, what did they think of him?
Honestly, it wasn't like I was hearing from the masses that no one, that there was problems. I wasn't hearing that at all, but also I wasn't necessarily going into this beforehand asking players what they think of Lloyd. Honestly, this collusion grievance is sort of the first time that I really was like looking into Lloyd's role and how he's managing and directing this union. He was elected in July of 2023. And I would say the thing that I have talked to players about since is his election, because Pablo Torre did a great job of pointing out that JC Treader led a vote. I mean, the players had to vote to approve this, but to change the Constitution, a bylaw in the Constitution, which had to do with the amount of time before an election that the player representatives would learn about the candidates. And the player representatives voted to change that bylaw so that they had, I think they changed it to not knowing who the candidates were in an election until like the time of the vote, essentially.
Right.
So instead of having, I think they had 4 weeks previously, instead of having multiple weeks to ask questions, to do research, to learn about the candidates, the players voted to change it to a very much smaller timeline there for them to know who these candidates are. And the reason they did that, the reason that players told me that JC brought this to them and that they decided it was a good idea is for confidentiality purposes, so that candidates would not remove themselves from the running, because many of these candidates have other jobs. And if they didn't want their other jobs to find out that they were interviewing and trying to leave, essentially. So that was the reason given to players. And the players that I talked to at the time, they thought that was very logical and they didn't have any issues with it. And at the time, they thought Lloyd was the best candidate. And now I think is sort of the beginning of where people are starting to question what's going on here. And not even necessarily players. I wouldn't say, I talked to one former player representative, one current player representative, who both were unsure about the scenario, not particularly with Lloyd's leadership, but just wondering why they had not known the details of this collusion grievance. both of the players I talked to were hopeful that there is a good reason for it, a pro-player reason for the NFLPA and into this confidentiality agreement with the NFL and choosing to keep the contents of this decision private. Both of the players said, I'm assuming there's a long-term strategy here, but they both expressed that they would like to know what that strategy is, and they would feel better about it if they'd been communicated with. And both of them said that they hadn't received any sort of communication from the union regarding this decision, even after, you would think after the decision leaked, they may hear something from the union, but they both said that they had not heard anything. So as far as players go, that would be what I've heard so far.
So when we look, as Kaylin Kaler, national NFL reporter for ESPN, is with us again, her stories at this point with Don Van Natta on this whole situation, NFLPA corruption writ large, we'll say, or potential corruption writ large, available to read on ESPN.com. And if this interests you, I highly recommend reading all of the reporting. We need to do a 3-hour show totally with Kaylin to get into all of this. So when you get to the Carlisle Group stuff and you discover this along the way of reporting it, where it's like, well, here's this other conflict of interest. And, Pablo in his podcast, kind of went into a lot of the potential conflicts and weirdness around his election and his relationship with Treader and all of this stuff. As you get into the Carlisle Group, and you are talking to whether it's the former outside counsel from WilmerHale that you referenced earlier, or players, or whoever else you're talking to around this story, was this all new information to them? How shocking is it? And ultimately, I guess the question here, Kaylin, is are we going to see some kind of, and what methods exist to potentially challenge Lloyd's position here and potentially replace him and get new leadership as the executive director of the PA if enough folks that are in positions of power, and players especially, think that that's necessary?
So good questions. I would say in a lot of the conversations that I've had, a lot of this has been new information to people that I've talked to, including people who probably should know. Like the player representative I spoke to earlier, he said, it's not, he can't say for sure that he didn't know about Lloyd and the Carlisle Group. He doesn't remember it at all. He said, I remember us when we were, learning about Lloyd to elect him. I remember learning about his career at Booz Allen before he was the union director.
Which, by the way, Kaylin, I should add real quick, that career is incredibly controversial because of some stuff that happened with a whistleblower complaint that also was in your and Pablo's reporting, and also is available to read about in, say, the Washington Post or any other major newspaper in terms of the end of his run as CFO at Booz Allen. Yeah,
a lot of interesting things going on there as well. But this player remembered Booz Allen. He remembered talking about Lloyd's role on the GE board, because he does have a role on 3 corporate boards. And then he didn't remember the Carlisle Group, though. He's like, I'm not going to say it never came up, but it's not something that was made such a big deal that I would remember it. So that was interesting. So I would say a lot of the conversations that I've had with people for this story, about this story, since the story came out, a lot of this was news to them, and especially the Carlisle role, the Carlisle Group role, that has been really surprising to a lot of people. I've been texting with a bunch of people and on the phone with a bunch of people today, whether they work for teams or agents, people in that capacity who are just shocked by that, honestly, are like, oh my God, what is going on? Just a lot of questions of what is going on at the union? As far as what happens next for Lloyd, we reported that the executive committee has retained a law firm, WilmerHale, last month hired Ronald C. Matchin of the law firm WilmerHale to work with a special committee of players within that executive committee to review Howell's activities as the executive director. So, that is an investigation of sorts internally. They've hired a law firm to do that. So I think that, says a lot about how serious the union, the executive committee, is taking this, where, they've hired a lawyer to help investigate and inspect Lloyd's activities as executive director. And then so I don't know how long that is going to take I don't know if we even know the full scope of everything that this Ronald Matchin is going to be looking at. But I think that is the next step, clearly, that the union is taking here. And after that, I actually meant to look this up in the Constitution earlier today and haven't done it yet, as far as what is the process for removing an executive director of the union, and if it's ever happened before. And off the top of my head right now, I don't have an answer to that, but I do plan to do a little bit of reading about that today, because I don't know if that's in the cards here, but it seems like, if they're investigating him, then anything's possible, probably.
Yeah, and I will say I don't know if there has been. I feel like most of my life there has been one of two guys running it, Gene Upshaw or DeMaurice Smith. Although there was someone, apparently, just a quick Google search, Richard Berthson from 2008 to 2009. I don't remember Richard's run at all. I don't know whether that was an interim thing. So maybe there's your answer. But yeah, for literally all but like 5 of the last 30, almost 40 something years, it's been one of two guys. So definitely not a lot of room for removal, certainly unprecedented. And Kaylin's been doing a great job reporting on all of this. Again, there's so much to bite off here. So make sure you read the full context of everything, ESPN.com. Kaylin, this was great. Thanks so much for joining us, and continued luck in finding out more things that we don't even know have gone wrong yet.
Thank you so much.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Coming up at 6 o'clock, Keith Law, the Athletic senior baseball writer, former Major League Baseball executive. He has been the best scout in media for a long time when it comes to the college game and putting together draft boards, all that kind of stuff. So think about Mel Kiper, less bits, but baseball kind of deal in terms of longevity. Maybe not as long as Kiper has. Kiper's been doing it since the 80s, but like truly the best doing it. Keith Law is going to join us at 6 o'clock, not only with his thoughts on the Rizzo situation, where the Nats are, but also the Major League Baseball draft is this weekend. And so checking in with Keith when the Nats have the number 1 overall pick feels like a good use of our time. So we'll do that coming up at 6 o'clock. Right now, though, it is, believe it or not, Anthony, it's Thursday. I know it's easier for you to believe than me. If you don't know what I'm talking about when you hear me say that, dear listener, go back to the start of the show, and you'll know why I've thought it's Friday all day. But Thursday at 5:30 means one thing.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, we kind of got 3 buckets and never read the comments today. First of all, if you're new to the show, welcome. What we do is we take the best of this show, chop it up, put it on YouTube at the Team 980 and out my YouTube page at Craig Hoffman. We also have episodes of Take Command there as well, and the occasional original program on the YouTube side of things. And what we do is we then let you comment, because that's how YouTube works. And then we take the best, and best is a relative term. Could be thought-provoking, could be funny, could be interesting, could be dumb, and we want to dunk on you. We take the best comments, we put them here in our little Google document, and we read them and respond to them. And Anthony, there were 3 buckets of, three videos that got a lot of traction this week that I want to comment on. One, some thoughts on the uniforms. And this was actually before they were launched, our chat with Kevin Sheehan, but some of the comments, as you'll see, were definitely people finding that video after the release. And then Terry McLaurin contract situation. And then separate, totally, NBA. You ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's get to it, baby.
All right. Very excited. Anthony Haney, after he missed a week of comments, is fired up and ready to go. Joey, Anthony, did you just delete you just deleted the comment? Or no, you didn't. Okay. Did you? I don't know. My whole browser just like freaked out for a second. I think we're good. And you're the only other person in the document, and I wasn't touching anything. My hands were up.
My cursor's all the way at the top of the screen. So
okay.
I don't think I deleted anything.
All right. I think we're good. All right. Joey DiDonato, K3U5U, says, these are the new generation Super Bowl uniforms. And then Jeffrey Kopful, 2304 says, yes, please make them permanent. So, and this by and large, Anthony, was the reaction that I saw. We took calls yesterday, and it's funny because every caller was kind of like shouting down, yelling at the bring the name back crowd, except for there aren't that many of them. Just like people are psyched with this. The reaction was positive. And so there's no need to shadow fight the people that do exist. It's not no one. And if you're listening right now and you're like, I'm one of those people, okay, fine. Like, you do you. But I do think by and large, like 75, 80, 90% of all feedback I saw across social media platforms, across calls, things that I heard on other shows, everything. People are just buzzing over these uniforms. And I love that first comment from Joey, who's like, because these are like the Super Bowl era uniforms. And it's like, yeah, it's about to be the Super Bowl era again. That's the attitude you should have as a fan. That's what rooting for a football team is about. It's about hope. It's about moving forward. It's about being like, yeah, that thing that happened that I loved, let's do it again.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I definitely love the energy. And the thing is, like, my generation, or I guess people that were born in 91 and earlier than that, like, they really got to like witness all of this and, experience these uniforms. And my generation didn't necessarily have that same experience. So, just to like have some of that, brought over and, be able to, share with, the previous generation, I think is pretty cool. And
Not to
hopefully,
mention, like, this is the uniforms kind of, even though it wasn't the Super Bowl era, it was the be really bad at football era. It's still like the uniform you had as a kid. Like, if you went to school and you're wearing the local team's uniform, like, this is the uniform you were wearing. So there's still some nostalgia to it, even if it's like, it also makes me think of bad football. 87 different quarterbacks and 42 head coaches and one long gone owner somewhere on a boat somewhere enjoying his money and nothing else. You can still be poor while being wealthy. Johnny Dodger 9426 says, I'm 52, grew up seeing Washington win 3 Super Bowls from the age of 8. I'm a lifer. I wanted to pick this one because I think this is very cool, Anthony. I also worked for the NFL and their design department around the time we did the Seahawks uni refresh. That was a nice, quote-unquote, modernization for the Seahawks brand. I expect Washington to release a similar tie-in with the past, but the feel is a bit more aggressive. It will certainly avoid any of the political pitfalls. I agree with Kevin, as this is a comment on our chat with Kevin Sheehan about this. I agree with Kevin about the business focus on the new generation and a brand that a younger generation will be proud to wear. The designer in me wants those helmets to look like the Mandalorian. I think, one, that's cool that you never know who's commenting on your videos, but like the Seahawks were kind of a classic. I mean, they really changed things, but it was also still very, very much them. And I think that's what's cool about what Washington did here was they really just said what we had was good. Like, we're not going to mess with it. Maybe a couple tweaks. And what I'm curious to see, I think, moving forward is, like, does the W get an upgrade? I think it has become synonymous with the team. I know there's a version that has, like, the monument in it. And obviously the color of the current W is I don't know whether to call it new or old, is the rebranded burgundy, not the original burgundy that is now what's old is new again. I could see them redoing the W with the burgundy and gold and maybe adding something more distinct to it. Whether that happens sooner, later, like, because you don't have to do, like, the NFL will charge you basically to do a full rebrand. But if you want to just update, I think you can do it more cost efficiently. Obviously, it still costs a lot of money because all your signage, all your everything has to change. But if they wanted to play this out over the course of years and they're willing to wait, if they did it all with the new stadium in RFK, then you're having to pay for new everything anyway. So I do wonder, like, what's possible there. But it's my brain thinking for 30 seconds. They have people paid a whole lot of money to think about it for a lot longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah, were the Seahawks, I guess, new uniform, were those the start of the color, what is it, the colorway?
The color rush?
Yeah, the color rush.
Yeah, that was kind of around that time. They were definitely, I feel like, one of the first ones. But, like, these new, like, super modern looking uniforms, like almost futuristic looking, although I guess the future is now, like, compared to the old, duller, like, bluer, like, like, the Seahawks now are, like, have an electricity to them.
Yeah.
Right? The old ones didn't. They felt a lot more 90s.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there's a chance to, like, can you do an electrified version of the old colorway that still feels modern? But I think for the uniforms, like, they kind of did. Like, it's a really sharp, clean, I love the whites. It's perfect. All right. How soon until we see a number 17 in any shade of burgundy and gold? I thought these comments were really interesting in taking the pulse of the fan base, Anthony, on the Terry McLaurin contract situation. Avatar 7x7 or 7x7 says, Terry is smart and knows that on any given play, your career could be done. So he's using the leverage he has to get a deal done. The man plays all out and is fearless when making catches that most receivers wouldn't be willing to take that big hit. Terry has manned up every time. What's that quote from the Matt Damon movie? Pay that man his money. So clearly, I think that the fan base is on Terry's side here. And this is what happens when you are the lone bright spot through the previous doldrums era, when you conduct yourself the right way, when you're someone who the fans can genuinely be proud of, to be like, that guy's my favorite player. That guy plays for my team. That guy's a member of my community. which leads to a pretty interesting series of comments that I want to read. I want to read all of these in a row, and then we'll get into some of the discussion on Anthony. But it starts with Ralph Wells 4654, who says, I feel like an old man, but I got to make this font bigger on my computer. It's a lot of comments in here, Anthony. All right, Ralph Wells 4654 says, the fan base will never forgive AP, the front office, and ownership if Terry is forced to become a disgruntled player. No tags and no trades. Pay him like a top $30 million receiver. Pay Terry what he wants and figure the rest out. He is Terry McLaurin, full stop. Jason Marr, 8, says, above all else, I think it sends a message to the team if they don't sign him soon. He's done everything the right way, stuck it through the bad times, then exploded with a real quarterback last season. What does it say to the rest of the locker room if the poster child for hard work doesn't get rewarded? Reality is the team holds most of the leverage, but they also know they won't be the same offensive juggernaut without him. I'm okay with overpaying simply because he's a baller, a hard worker, and the definition of a commander. I'd be sick if he ended up somewhere else. And last thing, Big NRGCO says, really love the show, guys. Question, do you think this huge microscope on Terry, his ability, his quote-unquote tier, his age, his production, that has now become a national conversation, helps or hurts the Jaden Daniels-Terry McLaurin connection? You must admit this dispute, whichever side is the holdup, has us all looking at production for Terry and now JD by fault with a much bigger lens. Lastly, Terry is my favorite player. I've been a fan since 1981, and we've never had a fan favorite like Terry, even with Art, CP, Lorenzo Alexander, Donnie Warren, Chris Cooley, etc. He's our heartbeat. He's worth the extra $3 million or whatever. Value includes the intangibles. If it's not prohibitive, get the deal done. Keep rocking. The thing I just don't really understand, I think the thing that is probably underappreciated the most by fans here is Adam Peters has never negotiated, I'll just say the thing. Adam Peters has never negotiated a deal like this as a general manager, which is not to say he's messing it up because he's inexperienced. What it is saying, or what I am saying by that, what I mean by that is he has to draw some level of line in the sand where he's like, I'm not going to be a pushover general manager. At the same token, I think it's really important that if you preach certain things, you practice them. And because the Commanders have the financial flexibility, not just this year, but next year, to do exactly that, to be like, you want to know what? You want $31 million, and we think you should be getting 30. That way you can check your box, but you're insistent on 31 or 32. I don't think $1 or $2 million. Again, it's not my money. It's not my cash. So Josh Harris might be like, that's not how we're going to do business. But for the general manager side of it, from a cap standpoint, I just don't think the extra $1 or $2 million is going to matter. And so while, yes, the year 3, every cent is going to matter because that's where you're starting to get an extension territory for Jaden. I believe it will be the 3rd year of this deal with Terry because you're extension eligible after year 3. That was year 1. So if it's 2 more years, yeah. So that 3rd year, that matters a lot. And if that is what they're fighting over, then Adam Peters is just going to have to eat you-know-what publicly. Notice how there haven't been any leaks from the Commanders' side to be like, oh, Terry isn't worth it. There hasn't been any of the bickering that sometimes you get with these things where this guy's they have not said a word as far as I can tell to anyone about this. But if there is a real disagreement over year 3, then I understand why this is taking so long. If not, I kind of don't. And if I was Adam, I feel like I'd be trying to push as much as I can into years 1 and 2, which is not typical of how contracts work. But in terms of the guarantees, I'm trying to front load it. That way by year 3, I have ultimate flexibility. And look, if Terry's not available if he does fall off in one of the next 2 years and you cut him in year 3 because you need that money for Jaden, Okay. And you have other, like, you need that money for Mikey. You need that money for Johnny because those guys ball out and they're all extension eligible. And you want to operate like the Eagles where you get ahead of stuff. Like, that's a discussion you have with a 33-year-old Terry McLaurin. Having that discussion with 30-year-old Terry McLaurin when he just had his best season ever and has shown zero signs of slowing down and is the heartbeat of your team, his reps better be asking for something crazy for this deal to be taken as long as it does. And that's what I just don't know, and why I think this deal is probably being held up.
If this deal gets done next week while you're out, are you calling into the show?
I would, if you guys want to call me, I would come on the show.
I mean, I was just curious.
I'm not gonna like call in and be like, "Hey, it's Craig in LA." But no, I would come on the show and talk about it if you want me to.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to get done like sooner rather than later.
It's absolutely getting done next week while I'm gone.
We just are, a little impatient.
You just put the jinx on it, Ant.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I haven't gone on vacation sooner.
It's all right.
It'll get done. All right. Last but not least, we have Ben Golliver on the show. And Ben is the national NBA writer for the Washington Post. He's awesome. It's great to have him on, especially because, as Anthony knows, Ben and I just play like phone tag for a month. We try to get him on during the finals and draft time and free agency, and it just never worked. And then at the end of free agency, finally we were able to connect. He's so good. I was really glad we had him. But I love this screen name, Anthony. City Fent, 4246. Not 50 Cent. City Fent.
City Fent.
4246. The title of the video, that the way we put it up on YouTube was, has the NBA pushed too far in the name of parity? And City Fent said, silly question. It's like saying, has the league reffed games too fairly? Why should any teams have a built-in advantage? The league should always encourage parity. That's what fair competition is. Anything less is WWE. And City Fent, I think you have missed the premise. That's not what parity is in this case. Parity means you're pushing everyone towards the middle. You are restricting teams' abilities to be better than average. That to me is like, here, let's look at what parity is by like Webster's definition. But to me, when I think of parity and competitive balance, that's what I mean. Yeah, the state or condition of being equal, especially regarding status or pay. Here's the thing. Not all these players and teams perform equally in terms of roster building. And so my issue and what Ben and I were talking about was, how do you reward, like, how do you not have parity for the sake of parity, but how do you reward the teams that do a good job? And that's a very different thing than parity. Parity says, no matter how well you do, we're ultimately going to pull you back to the middle. As opposed to, hey, you drafted really, really well, which is the way that we have said is the way you want to build, or we've done well in free agency, but now we can't keep the team together because it's too expensive. That's what the hard cap, second apron, does. That's what, or the second apron's acting as a hard cap. That's what that does. The first apron and the penalties and the luxury tax and all those things, those are trying to pull great teams back down and distribute the talent so that everyone is equal. That is not fair to me. It is parity. And so I think that we should think about that as a league, especially a league that has been built on dynasties over the year. Lakers, Celtics, Bulls, Lakers again, Warriors, et cetera, et cetera. And that gets to this from Hooponomics 1423, who said, great discussion. The idea of exempting homegrown Supermax deals like Shea's shouldn't mean a full exemption, but maybe it's time to rethink how they count. Because I had said, as I've said for years, I think a great solution would be on these Supermax deals, which, by the way, since this video less than a week ago, the Thunder have signed 2 more of them. They have just decided to pay Supermaxes to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, or I guess he got a max, and then Jalen Williams got a Supermax because he's made All-NBA. And so, or it could make it if he makes it again next year. Anyway, point is, those guys have gotten the absolute most money they could from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that is more money than they can get from any other team. That's stupid. That means you're bargaining against yourself. And so my idea has always been, let the teams in cash, so what the player gets, offer a supermax. So there's incentive for the player to stay and rewarding the homegrown talent, the teams that draft well, that do a good job, while not having it count extra against the cap versus if they left. That way, it's an even competitive playing field, and there's a reward for teams that do a good job in the draft. So what if the cap hit at half their value instead of the full amount? That would reward teams for drafting developing stars without letting them stack endlessly. The Warriors are a great case. They drafted Steph, Clay, and Draymond. They re-signed Draymond, but couldn't bring back Clay without pushing over the second apron cliff. The cliff is the issue. Once you cross it, it's a hard stop. A graduated slope plus a partial cap credit for homegrown stars should preserve parity and continuity. We're thinking about for the next CBA. Yeah, like they got to figure out something because this is ridiculous. You can't have, especially if a guy gets hurt and, oh my God, we're going to be cash strapped for a year. We'd be willing to pay the luxury tax, but our star is hurt. Hello, Indiana Pacers. And now they're letting Miles Turner walk. They're blowing up the team. Like, that's bad for fans. It's bad for GMs. I don't know that it's actually great for players either. I don't know who wins here besides teams that are mediocre or bad that get an artificial amount of talent available because they've stunk in building their team in other ways. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, we have cap space because all our players are bad and we haven't had to sign anybody.
Yeah, this is a weird, situation. And quite frankly, I don't have the answer to it either. I mean, I think you and Ben probably had a great discussion about it.
You can listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify.
I need to.
You'd enjoy it. You listen to it on your ride home today. You don't hear enough of my voice. Or maybe, you know what? Save it for next week while I'm gone because you'll miss me. You'll miss me when I'm gone, Anthony.
I will.
The other problem, though, is you don't want to make it too, because fans follow the transaction so much, it's already basically impossible to, and all these picks, they get the more favorable of the pick swap of these four teams and the second most favorable, but only if the moon is in a waxing gibbous. And you're like, what? Simplifying some of this would also go a long way. And I think simple would probably reward teams that are good. And simple would also make it easier to follow for everyone. All right. That's Never Read the Comments here on The Hoffman Show. If you'd like to leave a comment, follow us, or subscribe, I should say, at the Team 980, and, of course, at Craig Hoffman. When we get back here on The Hoffman Show, The Athletic senior baseball writer Keith Law joins us. Keith, former Major League Baseball executive, now senior writer for The Athletic. Who should the Nats be looking at, and who are they looking at? The number one pick in the draft. Plus, we'll get his thoughts on Mike DiBartolo, the man who will be making the pick instead of Mike Rizzo. All that and more next. Final hour here of the Hoffman Show on a Thursday. We had great guests earlier, Kaylin Kaler, who did some tremendous reporting about the NFLPA and kind of a developing yet ongoing scandal. If you missed that, check it out on the podcast. Right now, though, we are just days away from the Washington Nationals having the number 1 pick in the Major League Baseball draft. We are days removed for them firing their general manager. That's a weird combo. Let's talk about it. Keith Law is a senior writer for The Athletic, former executive in Major League Baseball. I've been on the show before. Keith, welcome back, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Interesting week in DC sports, that's for sure. Didn't think we'd start Monday with the Rizzo news. So let's start there, and then we can get into some of the draft stuff. What was your reaction, as someone who's been in baseball a long time, former executive yourself, to the news that Mike Rizzo got the axe on Sunday?
I thought it was super bizarre. Really still haven't heard a good explanation for it. I think timing was bad. I think it seems highly reactionary by ownership. I mean, we're doing this, they did it 9 days before 2 of the 5 guys they got back in the Juan Soto trade go to the All-Star game. 3 of the 5 guys have combined for something like 12 wins above replacement just so far this year. If nothing else, that should have kept Rizzo in the job for a bit longer, especially since he just made some big changes to scouting and player development about 18 months ago. And I think he should have gotten more time to see that through, honestly. So I don't know what they were doing. I still haven't heard a good explanation, and I'm just as flummoxed today as I was 4 days ago.
I do think that the initial remarks from Mike DeBartolo, who obviously is, as you know, and for the audience, is the now interim general manager for the Nationals. I thought they were kind of interesting and telling in a way where, he talked about some of the there's more ways to invest in a team than just the payroll, like some of the infrastructure, staffing, technology, etc. And it seemed like there's going to be a push in those departments. From what you know about the Nats scouting, like how up to par are they in those areas? And even if they're below par, which I think is kind of universally thought from everything that I've heard, how did Rizzo make good on the things he was able to do anyway?
So I know probably the most about amateur scouting, and I actually think they're above par. They brought in a number of people, including Danny Hotz, who I've known for at least 15 years at this point, who is an excellent evaluator and an excellent manager of people. And they brought him in, Rizzo brought him in specifically to try to revamp amateur scouting because they had a couple of years where they were less successful, certainly. And I liked what they did in the draft last year. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in what they're going to do this year. I know they're lighter on pro scouting, and I think that is more than anything else just a function of staffing. And I believe, I don't have great information on this, so I apologize. I'm speculating a bit more than I like to, but I believe they are kind of below the median in how much they spend on what we call R&D, or what people might call analytics. And that is both an investment in people and an investment in technology. And that touches everything: pro scouting, amateur, international, player development, and your major league staff.
Yeah, that is definitely something that has been, I think, widely speculated on, reported on at varying levels of certainty that the R&D has not been up to par. And I think the interesting thing that hopefully we'll learn more about in moving forward, because it matters, is that because Rizzo wasn't asking for the right stuff or didn't know the right stuff as the game continued to evolve and he's been around a long time? Or is that because he did and he's very smart and went to ownership and the ownership said no? Because if that's the case, then obviously the blame would be more on the ownership side of things.
And that's my guess. I've known Rizzo a long time too. And obviously, I think from what I said, I have a lot of respect for him. Yeah, the game has changed, but I also think he's evolved. And just from talking to people in the Nats organization across scouting and player development, they get it. These guys, they're all younger than Mike, obviously, but a lot of them came in from other organizations that were that earlier adopters of some of the analytics stuff and some of the technology, and they were trying to get some of that stuff implemented. So I do not believe for a second that Rizzo was saying, no, I don't want that stuff. I absolutely believe this was ownership either not doing it or maybe nickel and diming a little bit and trying to do things at a cheaper way, essentially, not giving them the tools that they needed. I think player development in particular, just they probably didn't have the same tools in their tool belt that a lot of other clubs did.
Keith Law, senior baseball writer for The Athletic, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Keith, can you give an example of something like that? Because I feel like we've seen a lot of that written, talked about, et cetera, as just kind of a statement, right? They are behind on player development. They haven't invested in player development. Functionally, what does that mean and how does that work?
It can mean a very broad number of things. One of the more notable ones, like I can speak to a different organization, but Colorado Rockies finally opened a pitching lab of their own this offseason. They may be the last or one of the very last teams that didn't have one. Clubs like the Yankees have had one for a decade now. And that is a place where you send pitchers typically in the offseason, but also if a guy needs a break, he's not having success in the middle of the year, he's coming back from an injury, you send him there where kind of your best technology is to be able to evaluate his biomechanics, evaluate his pitches, work hand in hand with your R&D department on pitch design, which there's a lot of, I think, guesswork going into that. But a lot of it, they're trying to go off evidence saying, well, with pitches that have this particular shape or released from this slot, just have this combination of characteristics, tend to be more effective. What if we change the grip on your slider so that we can get it to maybe break more horizontally or more vertically, or increase the spin rate on your four-seamer so they get more ride up in the zone? Oh, that didn't work. All right, maybe we need to add a sinker or a cutter or something else to your arsenal. And I'm using broad terms. They're working much more specifically with pitchers. Really, like if you move your fingers to this spot, what happens? They measure what the pitch does from the hand, really from the back, from glove separation all the way to the plate to find out its shape, its release point, extension, release height, et cetera, so that they can compare it to other pitches throughout baseball and say, okay, guys who do this tend to be more successful. So you're kind of testing these things out in the lab before a pitcher. It used to be a pitcher would design a new pitch and you would try it in the game. Maybe he would just throw in the bullpen a little bit, see what it looked like. But he wouldn't really know if it worked until he got into the game. And clubs that don't do a lot of that aren't doing that kind of pitch design, are at a disadvantage. You'd rather be the team that's experimenting, and some of your experiments don't work, than the team that's not experimenting at all. And I do think that has been true about the Nationals. I think it's less true last year or so. But as somebody, I live in Wilmington, Delaware. I see their high A affiliate. I see all their prospects come through. At some point, I saw their Double A club today, actually. They had not been doing as much of that, I think, until very recently.
And that would certainly explain why they have the second most losses in baseball behind the Rockies since they won the World Series. But like you said, the fact that Rizzo did make these changes and didn't get a chance to see them through is certainly a controversial point, to say the least. Keith Law is with us here on the Hoffman Show. So what do you know about DeBartolo, who is now taking over on an interim basis? He will be in charge of the draft coming up this weekend. And there is a lot of thought that he might be one of the top candidates, if not the top candidate. I think there's a lot of hope that the Nationals will at least talk to other folks, and maybe there's even a president and a GM, and DeBartolo winds up being just the GM. But what do you know about Mike DeBartolo?
I don't. Actually, I've never met him. I've never spoken to him, which is not to say that there's anything bad. I couldn't give you an opinion on him at all. He hasn't been involved. Typically, the people I know the best work in amateur scouting, pro scouting, player development, or used to, right? And they've moved up. I know many people who are higher up I'm also old at this point, so I know people who've been around for a while. So I don't know him. I don't believe he's been involved in the draft process at all. I would be really dismayed especially if I worked there and someone who just hasn't been involved drops in and says, all right, I'm making the pick now. Like, that's pretty clear path to making a bad decision. Rizzo was obviously going to decide who they were taking at 1-1. He's not there. Frankly, I would leave it to the scouting staff at this point, unless DeBartolo has been much more involved in the process throughout the spring than I realize, which is possible. I say you've got to let the people who've been in that room, who've been working through all the scenarios, you've got to let them ultimately make that decision. And to your point about, hopefully they go outside. Again, this is not in any way a criticism of DeBartolo, but of course they should go outside, right? That the odds that the perfect person for the job just happens to be right there are pretty low. They should at least talk to people from a variety of organizations and a variety of backgrounds. And if DeBartolo still turns out to be the best choice at the end, great. But just promoting him without doing their due diligence like that would be doing a disservice to the organization.
No doubt. And we've talked about this some this week, Keith. Like in any business, if you get a chance to talk to some competitors and pick their brains and they're really trying to sell you on them doing your job, why wouldn't you try to get that intel and understand what you're missing?
How about John Daniels? Ran the Rangers for an extremely long time, took them to 2 World Series. When they did win the World Series, about a year or so after John was fired, Chris Young, who was in charge at that point, specifically credited the work that John did to build the organization, the players, and the front office. John is now a special assistant with Tampa Bay Rays. He's actually been going out and seeing a lot of players this year, including a lot of amateurs. I've talked to him just about some players, just like I talk to any old scout. He's got the experience. He's taken teams to playoffs. He's built an organization, and he's someone who's available. I don't know if he'd be interested, but that is exactly the type of person they should be going to talk to about, like you were saying, that president role. And then maybe they hire a president and they hire a GM, but this is somebody who's had the experience that they're looking for. They want somebody who can come in and build the organization back into a perennial playoff contender.
On a personal note, that'd be weird if it was JD, because I came here from Dallas a decade ago and was covering those Rangers teams. Like, hey, what are you doing here?
Hello again.
Yeah, hello again. Keith Law with us. All right, so to the draft, Keith, where the Nationals do have that first pick, and the baseball draft is very different than the drafts that I think sports radio listeners by and large pay attention to, the NFL and the NBA. It is not as simple as who's the best player, let's take them at 1. And from what I understand, as someone who does not follow this particularly closely, is that this year in particular, that is true. You are not just looking at the top player. So from a system standpoint, can you explain to me and the audience why the baseball draft is different and why it's not as simple as just who is the very best player and let's take them with the first overall pick?
So there are 2 major reasons. I'm going to start with the smaller one because it's easier to explain, which is that we select primarily college juniors and high school players. And those are 2 very different categories of players. And we're asked to compare the 2 when, if nothing else, they just have different timetables to getting to the majors. So you may decide that a particular high school player is actually the very best player at your pick, but he's going to take 5 years to get there. And for other reasons, maybe you're in the middle of contending at that point, you might take the player who is second on your list, who happens to be a college player, and you project to get to the majors in 18 months. The bigger reason is that we do not have hard slotting in the draft. Every pick for the first 10 rounds has a dollar figure assigned to it by Major League Baseball that is essentially a recommendation. It is a slot bonus amount, but the team is not required to pay that amount. Each team's picks through the first 10 rounds get all added up. That is their bonus pool that they could spread around however they wanted. They could go sort of Ricky Williams and give all the money to the player they take in the first round and sign a bunch of college seniors for $1,000 the rest of the draft. I don't recommend that strategy, but it is technically feasible. So what teams often tend to do, and what the Nationals actually did last year, for folks who remember, the day before the draft last year, they traded for an extra draft pick. The Orioles just did the same thing today. And that allowed it gave the Nationals the extra pick and the extra bonus pool slot figure that was allocated to that pick. With that extra money, they were able to go draft and sign Luke Dickerson in, I think it was actually a 3rd round. I apologize if I'm off on that. But he was, in some people's minds, a first-round talent. They give him a first-round bonus. He is one of their best prospects right now. That is what the smart teams do with, particularly if they have extra picks, or if, like the Nationals, you have the first pick, which has an $11 million slot bonus amount allocated to it. That is the largest, obviously, for any pick in the draft. It's $1 million or so more than what is allocated to the second pick. So they have a lot of money to play with. So if they say, we're not necessarily taking the best guy, but we're taking one of the best guys, and it's going to give us $2 million extra to draft somebody we really like in the second round, that can be a perfectly valid strategy. That might be better than just taking the best guy and giving him slot.
So with that knowledge base now at our disposal, who do you think the Nats are considering, or do you have a strong lean on who they are taking Sunday at the 1-1 overall spot?
I don't have a strong lean. Nobody obviously the teams, I don't expect the Nationals to tell me today, hey, Keith, here's who we're taking. Teams don't do that. It's not in their interest to do that. I don't, they could be my best friend in the world. They still shouldn't tell me. But teams behind them generally have some idea. And the sense is the Nationals have not decided. Even the teams drafting right behind the Nationals don't know who they're taking, but believe they have a list of about 6 guys that they've been actively considering. My sense is there might be 3 who are stronger and 3 who are less strong. The 3 who I think are stronger in that mix would be Ethan Holiday, Jackson's brother, Matt's next son. Cade Anderson, the lefty from LSU, who, if you watch the College World Series, he started game 1 of the finals. And Ava Arquette, who is the shortstop for Oregon State, the Hawaiian-born shortstop from Oregon State, who you might have seen in the postseason, who I think is by consensus the best college position player in the draft.
All right, so now we know. And if you want more from Keith on all of the draft prospects, you want to get in deep, you can read his work, Keeps the Top 100 and the whole deal all year long at The Athletic, and extra bonus pieces, et cetera, et cetera. Keith, always great to chat. Hopefully, whatever the Nationals do, they can start being better and we can do a little more baseball. We can talk more often, but I appreciate you chiming in here when we need you.
Yep, my pleasure.
All right, that's Keith Law, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, we have 2 very important but very not equal topics. 1, we must discuss Anthony's Instagram activity. 2, we must discuss the Mystics and Aces tonight. But first, the latest from the world of women's sports, presented to you by Wawa Chicken, how you want it. Wawa, with customizable roasted or crispy chicken sandwiches. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980, where you see a very swaggy Anthony Haney.
Swagged out Haney.
You can follow him on Instagram at _babyant. _babyant. Where his most recent post is him walking through Europe in his outfits, mixed in with in the swipe, your normal day is someone's dream. Be grateful every single day. And a caption, Euro stepping with the travel like I paid the refs.
Thoughts, Craig Hoffman. Thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking, man. What would you rate the fit? Let's start there. What would you rate the fit?
The fit's a 10. Like it's very well done.
Okay.
It did prompt a text from my wife. Can you talk about Anthony's aura on the show? His captions and photos are outrageous aura. Because that's the thing. That's the thing. You actually pull it off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, like you. Do I take a step back and go, this man paid a photographer?
I mean, the thing is, you can.
You can. And the thing is, deep down, all of us want to have pictures like this. All of us want to look cool walking through the streets of Europe, having photos, have the confidence to be like, I'm going to throw these on Instagram with a lyrical caption. And not all of us can do it.
Yeah. Like, I put my best foot forward.
But also, you put in the time.
Yeah.
That's what I can't decide, though. Is you putting in the time, is that positive or negative? Like, if you just showed up and you're like, this is my life. This is how I roll all the time. No, bro, you went to New York and, like, had a whole consultant day with an actual fashion designer. Now, you were going in part, like, it was your birthday, it was your solo trip, and it was Paris Fashion Week. So,
yes, sir.
I think in this particular case, it's positive points because there was an occasion and you rose to it. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm doing this for me on my birthday to look cool on Instagram. It's like, no, I'm going to Paris Fashion Week, Mama Jammas, and I'm gonna participate. And
yes,
you
sir.
did. And you did. And you pulled it off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I will say it was a lot of time and energy. I will say I salute all the content creators out there because I don't know how they consistently do it on an everyday basis.
Well, it's cooler if you don't have anything else you got to do.
Well, that too.
Like those of us that are trying to earn a W-2, a little different lifestyle.
It is way different. But yeah, this was a good, step outside of my, comfort zone, my box. I thoroughly enjoyed it all, like the taking of the photos, the putting on of the clothes, coming up with the caption, the song. I didn't do a song for this one. I was thinking long and hard, and I was like, this is taking too long, so I just put the content up. But yeah, I mean, it's been cool. My friends, they didn't really get to celebrate with me, but they're in the comment sections, and everybody's in the comment sections talking about, Big Ant this. And
I think Z shared the funny thing is he shared not you. He shared the quote.
He said the quote. The quote's good, though.
The quote is good.
You got to get some of that in there. I didn't have any extra, B-roll to just throw in there. I mean, I do have extra B-roll, but I think
you and your sparkly Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. I thought about that, but I was like, I'm going to put that in the highlight. I haven't made the highlight yet, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well done,
It's
sir.
been fun.
Well done. You want to know who you talking about that actually reminded me of?
Who?
It reminded me of talking to Sony about the draft.
Oh, man.
Because Sonya showed up at the draft and everyone's like, oh, hello, ma'am.
Yes.
You and your coach fit. And then I talked to her at Media Day and she was like, that was cool. I'm glad I got to dress up, but like, don't expect a bunch of tunnel fits.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, Anthony, most days to work, comes in some basketball shorts and Crocs. You got Crocs on right now?
Yes, that's exactly what I have. Hey, look, Craig knows me well.
Who's the real?
I'm comfortable.
Will the real Anthony Haney please stand up so we can see your shoes and see that you're wearing Crocs? Yep, that's Anthony Haney, everybody. But also, Or is this Anthony Haney, baby Ant?
Yeah, that's probably what it is. My alter ego. Yeah.
By the way, Sonia Citron going to participate in the WNBA's 3-point contest. She said that on a podcast with Lisa Leslie from Just Women's Sports. So there's been little rumors going around. Lisa was like, so, and Sony was like, yes. So Sony, as part of her All-Star weekend, where she is an All-Star, is also going to do the 3-point contest. We will talk about the Mystics matchup tonight against the Las Vegas Aces. Next, they're out at Eagle Bank Arena. So that's how we wrap up our final hour here on The Hoffman Show. Show. We're on the Team 980. Is it just me or is that music band really loud? Did I secretly turn my headphones up in the break?
Nah, I was loud.
Come on, Ant. Give you a bunch of compliments, gas you up, and then your foot's a little too hard on the gas there, bro.
Boom!
My eardrums. My earballs.
I apologize, sir.
Thanks. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Don't adjust your radios here, not only on the Team 980, but the Odyssey app, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. All right, tonight in all of those same places, we have the Mystics and Aces as they will face off at Eagle Bank Arena. By the way, Anthony, are you a Wicked fan?
I am a fan of it. I want to see part 2. I saw part 1. They gave us a cliffhanger, but I liked it.
Okay. I admittedly, in a non-shocking admission to anyone who knows me, haven't seen any of the Wickeds. Although maybe that's what I watch on my flight to LA. Like I want to watch, especially the one that just came out. I know it was very well reviewed, so maybe that's what I'll watch in part of my flight tour from LA. We also are saving though. We're saving Quarterback, the Netflix
I'm
series.
3 episodes in.
Good? Yeah.
It's good so far.
Season 1 was awesome. Receiver was really good last year. And so I'm very excited for season 2 of that. It's just that I need to, actually sit down and watch it, which is great for a long flight because it just takes off the time. So perhaps one of those two things. Anyway, they're doing like a big Wicked thing tonight at Eagle Bank Arena. Not the most important thing, but something to note. The most important thing is Asia Wilson going to play? And the answer is no. She was present at shoot-around this morning, was getting some shots up, but had a big cast on her wrist. The Aces star and reigning MVP injured when she took a hard fall against the Liberty over the weekend. And Anthony, this is a huge opportunity for the Mystics. I mean, the Mystics right now are just a game below 500. And they are obviously performing far better than I think a lot of folks thought. I think a lot of folks thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league. In fairness, I thought the Valkyrie were going to be the worst team in the league, and they have actually performed at basically the same level. Some other teams like Connecticut have just totally crashed out, which is funny because Marina Mayberry is the queen of the crash out, and she's on the roster. But this is a big opportunity against a Las Vegas team that we thought was going to be one of the best teams in the league, and flat out hasn't. Like, they've struggled, and they have, especially outside of Asia Wilson, struggled. Like, really badly struggled. In fact, they have the same record as the Mystics at 9-10. They're 4-6 in their last 10, which the Mystics are 6-4. So the Mystics theoretically ascending, the Aces descending. And there was a game a couple of games ago where, like, I think Asia outscored the rest of her teammates by it was like 29-22 or something, which doesn't sound like enough points, but like that's how bad the offense was. So without Asia Wilson tonight, I mean, could Jewel Lloyd and Jackie Young and the talented players that Vegas still has do some things? For sure. But like, this is an opportunity for Washington to get back to get above 500. And if they do, by the way, they would pull ahead of Indiana, who is another team that I thought would be in the upper echelon. Obviously, Clark's been injured much of the year. And they would be the 7th best team in the league, which is good for a playoff spot. Will ultimately Indiana and Vegas turn it around the second half of the season? Maybe. Will teams like Golden State, who are sitting right there around the same record at 10-9, fall off? Maybe. But this is a big, big opportunity if we're talking about the Mystics and not in a, hey, they're rebuilding, like everything's fine, like we kind of are with the Wizards. It's a much harder, longer road to hoe in the NBA than in the W. But if we're going to talk about them like a real contender, which I think they've earned, then this is an enormous game, just a couple of games before they break for All-Star next weekend.
Yeah, definitely surprised about how the Aces have performed so far this year. I mean, you look at their team, they have 4 Olympians on their team. And the fact that they haven't been able to, figure it out is a little weird. But at the same token, maybe we are underestimating the continuity that, they did have with Kelsey Plum and, De'Aaron Hamby and, all the other players that end up, exiting out of the program, the organization. So it is definitely a surprise, but I think the Mystics can lean on the fact that they've been, playing exceptionally well. You see Shakira, finding her rhythm. I think the rookies have definitely, stepped up and played into their role. And then, Slim has been, the veteran that she's been all season long. So I think this is a great opportunity. And I think if you can, stack a couple of wins heading into the All-Star break, I think this will be a great situation for the Mystics to, position themselves to be in that playoff hunt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know where the offense comes from for Las Vegas. Asia is averaging 20.7 points per game. And the next highest scorer is Jackie Young, who's still having a really solid season. She also made the All-Star team. She's 17-2 a game. But Chelsea Gray, who at times has been, a higher scorer, but has always been she's the point god, right? She's averaging 12.7 points, which is fine, but it's 4 assists and 3.5 turnovers. That ain't going to work. And without Asia tonight, where are those assists going? How is she going to create? And so I think that's an interesting matchup tonight too. Chelsea is obviously, we saw an unrivaled, she still got the bag. The bag is deep. She can really get on one. Is Slim on her? or is Sony on her? And I think that's something we started to see in the last couple weeks is I think that they're starting to put a little bit more on Sonya's plate defensively. I think they're looking at the opponent's best player and saying, we're going to put Citron, not Sykes, which is crazy because Slim is one of the best defenders in the entire league, and she might be the second best perimeter defender on her own team. Like, that is how good Sonya Citron is. Slim hasn't lost anything. Sony's that good. But with the offensive burden that Slim carries, if they can ease her load defensively, it would seem to make a lot of sense. Like, and especially I think stylistically, they have two great guards. One's going to be on Jackie, one's going to be on Chelsea. And it's just a matter of, do you want Sony more on ball or sticking with someone off ball? I feel like the way Slim navigates the screens and all that kind of stuff, and plus these two are so good, you probably wind up mixing it up. And oh, by the way, they also have Jewel Lloyd, who's having a pretty brutal season, but is still Jewel Lloyd. I think that all becomes very interesting tonight. And then I think the bigger thing, though, is can Shakira have a night? Because without Asia down there, who's Gardner? Nalissa Smith is played all right for them since being traded over. She's rebounded the ball very well, 7 a game in her 3 games for the Aces this season since she came over from Dallas. But they don't have a lot of size with Asia out. And so, Kia Stokes still plays for them, a great defender, but not an offensive force. She'll probably get their matchup on Shakira, so maybe it's Kiki that has the night. So something to watch for tonight, the matchups inside, and then obviously what can defensively Sony and company do on the outside, Sony Slim and company, I should say, on the outside for Washington against Vegas's guards. So that coming up about 45 minutes or so from now, a little bit more than that. You have a little bit of BetMGM tonight following us here on the Team 980, and then we will cede to Monumental Sports coverage of the Washington Mystics here on the station. All right, we also have Summer League action that started. Wizards getting going. Going to be fun to follow that, although you guys can talk about it without me because I'm not going to be here tomorrow or most of next week. So we'll wrap up the show and my week next here on the Team 980. All right, wrapping up here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and the Odyssey app. Miss any part of today's show, make sure you check out the podcast. It includes our fantastic chat with Keith Law about the national situation. Needless to say, Keith was not a big fan of the moves that the Nationals made over the weekend, where they moved on from Mike Rizzo. Doesn't get it at all. So that was good, but he also helped us understand the draft and the prep and who might the Nationals be looking at with the first overall pick. Kaylin Kaler joined us from ESPN to talk about her reporting with our pal Don Van Natta on the scandal unfolding at the NFL Players Association with their executive director, Lloyd Howell. So really great guest today, and a fresh episode of Take Command with Dan Pizzuta that you'll want to check out as well in the Take Command feed. I think Evan has gotten that up. If not, it'll be out soon, and you can check it out either tonight, tomorrow, over the weekend. Doc Walker in tomorrow, Anthony, and all of next week?
Yes, sir.
All right, so y'all be nice to the DOC. Please, those are my instructions to you. I'm telling you to be nice to Doc. He's nice to you, and if not, you probably deserved it. So Doc Walker will be in tomorrow. Do you have any idea what y'all are doing tomorrow, Anthony?
He's probably going to text me as soon as we log off here.
Okay, Doc, you can just text him early. Just go ahead if you're listening. We're all but done. I will say, Anthony, I have one more question for you on the way out here. Are you a fireworks guy at all?
Not now. Like when I was a kid, sure. Like I was into the what are they called? The Roman candles. I was into those, the cherry bombs. But now, no.
Yeah, there's no like inner desire for you to set off fireworks on your own, right?
Nah.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe this just means we're old.
When I have kids, I think I'll be excited, but until then, no.
Well, I don't mind going to fireworks or watching them. I don't need to set them off myself. I'm not a professional. Neither is Najee Harris. He is a professional football player. Adam Schefter reporting that apparently he had an incident with a firework on July 4th of some kind and injured his eye. Expected to be ready for the season, according to his agent.
He should have learned from Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, and I hate that for JPP, that's like kind of what first thing people are going to think about. But like, I don't know, man. Well, first of all, like, I mean, the obvious one is like, now I feel like I'm doing a Russell bit at the end of the show yelling at kids. But like, kids, don't fire fireworks into people's houses, running around. We got better stuff we can do than that. You'll learn how much that sucks one day. I mean, one, you could seriously hurt someone. Two, just paying for stuff is really not that fun. So don't make people pay for stuff. Don't do that. And even if your insurance pays for it, filing insurance claims is terrible. So don't do that. Two, just like the danger of setting off your own fireworks, they got professionals that do it. Like, you're Najee Harris, you could pay someone to do it. I'm sure the city of Pittsburgh, wherever he's got a community thing. I don't know, man.
Or just be responsible, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, take a lot of precaution. I don't know. Wear your helmet with a visor. That has to do it. Anthony, do we have anything in the Real Things folder?
Yes, we do.
All right, fire away. No pun
Real
intended.
things.
We're not gonna be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, what do we got today, sir?
All right, so yesterday, Cornelius Lucas was on the Up and
Adam show.
Up and Adam show, and he was talking about what it was like to play with Jaden Daniels last year.
Oh.
You are a veteran in this league who has seen great quarterback play. I think it almost carries a little more weight, your opinion, after being with Jaden last year.
Oh, man.
Truly, this like transcendent. I mean, you just said it. Oh, man. Why are you saying, oh, man?
Because in 12 years, I've never seen a rookie player come in and never have a bad day. You know, like, it was kind of like, oh, well, he had a good day today. Maybe tomorrow he'll show us that he's a rookie. And he just kept piling on good days after good days after good days. And to the point where I wasn't surprised when we got to the season and he had the type of performances that he was having because he showed us every day who he was.
I mean, you played with Stafford, you've played with Goff, you've played with Drew Brees, and Jaden is sticking out to you.
Yes, 100%. Probably top 2 quarterback I play with.
Who's one?
Top 2. I don't want to get into that, but he's top 2. Maybe, let's see. Oh, that's tough. I really enjoy playing with Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stafford's everybody's favorite quarterback.
Yeah, I feel like Matt doesn't get the recognition that he needs, that he should get, because he's been balling like this for however long he's been in the league. He's just now getting his shine because he went to the Super Bowl. He's with the Rams. We're looking for media coverage, but he was balling in Detroit.
That's true. Cornelius Lucas played with Matt Stafford from 2014 to 2016. I don't have Stafford's numbers right in front of me, but like, there's a chance he threw for 5,000 yards one of those years because that's what Stafford was doing at that time. Played with Goff, I think Goff's rookie year, 2017 in LA. Maybe it was his second year. 2018, he would have been with Brees in New Orleans. Jesus. He's played with some good quarterbacks. And then he came to Washington in 2020, and not as good until last year when it was.
Yeah.
But that means if he's saying Stafford's won, he's putting him over 2018 Drew Brees.
Probably. Good gracious. Dang. We have 2 others. We can either go Mother Nature disrupting the AAA affiliate game.
Oh, okay. What's the other one?
Courtney Williams declining Kathy Engelbert.
Oh, that's funny, but no, I want this is so good. So there was a huge storm that interrupted a minor league baseball game in a very unique way.
Third with nobody out. 1-1 the count on Paulie. A huge crash of lightning as Contreras kicked. And it's a balk.
Wow. They're going to call that a balk, and everybody jumped.
Mother Nature gives Jacksonville a run. It's 2-1, and Norfolk is arguing the call, but I don't know how you can argue that. Unfortunately,
I know how you can argue it.
It's unfortunate.
I know how you can argue it. You say, hey, there was a big class with thunder as our pitcher was starting his motion. We should just pause that amount of lightning. That's close. No, the game paused, suspended, no balk. Anyway, that's how our show ends. No balking here. Doc Walker tomorrow and next week. I'll see y'all next Friday. Have a good one. Be good.